Okay, BESE members, if we could get everyone together, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, we'll start with the call to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Bofi? Dr. Bofi is present. Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis is present. Ms. Edmonston? Present. Ms. Edmonston is present. Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Ms. Holloway? Present. Ms. Holloway is present. Dr. Jones?
Present.
Dr. Jones is present. Ms. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Lewis is present. Ms. Orange Jones?
Present.
Ms. Orange Jones is present. Mr. Rock? Dr. Thomason?
Here.
Dr. Thomason is present. Ms. Vautier? Here. Ms. Vautier is present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Leading us in the invocation this morning will be Superintendent Hollis Milton, Superintendent from West Louisiana.
Heavenly Father, we pray that you will give us your gift of knowledge, that we might always make the best decisions for the good of all the school children in Louisiana. We pray that you give us the wisdom to know and define our task, the strength to build and refine our educational goals, and the courage to persevere as necessary. We ask for your direction that we might make unselfish decisions for those we serve. We pray that all who are assembled here have a safe and journey home. We thank you for all of your past and future blessings. Amen.
Amen. Now leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance is Dr. Betty Washington from Calcasieu Parish, Special Services and Alternative Programs.
Good morning. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. One more issue. Okay, we need to get a motion to approve the agenda for this morning. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Bofi? Second. Mr. Davis? Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
The next item is approval of the minutes of December 2nd, 2015.
Can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Ms. Bofi? Ms. Holloway? Do we have any objections to that motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
The next item is election of board officers. Consideration of election of board officers for 2016.
Ms. Holloway?
Yes. I move. Not really.
Request to speak.
There we go.
I move that the board approve the following slate of officers for 2016. Mr. James D. Garvey, Jr., President. Dr. Holly Buffy, Vice President. And Ms. Kira Orange Jones, Secretary Treasurer.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
A second.
Dr. Jones, thank you. Do we have any questions or discussion from board members? Hearing none, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
There's been a request to take item 7.2 out of order, consideration of recognition of outgoing BESE members. Can we get a motion to receive? So moved.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis, first by Ms. Bofi. Do we have any objections to taking that out of order? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Second.
Why don't you start?
Okay. So we have 3 appointees that are returning today to be recognized. The board has really requested that they come back because we didn't have any real time to honor them through no fault of anyone. But if you would join me in recognizing Ms. Bradford first of all. Dr. Bophy is going to present that for us this morning.
So I have something really official to say, but before I do that, I would like to thank you for a few things. I understand you're responsible for the sweet tea in the deliberation room at lunch and these nice little pins. And I also just want to say that I hear from a very reliable source that the grandchildren are especially excited about you being a full-time Mimi. So those are the things that I understand to be true. So I have a resolution for Ms. Connie Bradford. Whereas Ms. Connie Bradford was appointed by the governor as an at-large member of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education in February 2010 and has faithfully and effectively served as a board member for 5 years, establishing policies for an educational system whereby all Louisiana students have the opportunity to successfully pursue their goals, dreams, and ambitions without limitations or preconceived expectations. And whereas Ms. Bradford has extensive educational experience and has dutifully served as the chair of the often contentious Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee, exemplifying leadership, stability, and diplomacy, all while frequently serving as the voice of reason and rarely taking credit for her invaluable contributions. And whereas Ms. Bradford is an accomplished Louisiana Tech University graduate, having obtained a bachelor's degree in elementary education and a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, educational leadership, as well as holding Louisiana teacher and principal certification. And whereas Ms. Bradford has honorably and expertly served in a number of educational roles at Cedar Creek School in Lincoln Parish, including teacher, director of admissions, junior high coordinator, assistant principal of affairs, and most recently served as the head of schools. And whereas Ms. Bradford has provided the board with her expertise in all areas regarding K-12 education, has contributed to the Special Education Advisory Council, thank you, the Non-Public Schools Council, the Believe and Prepare grant, and is committed to education, professionalism, and family beyond all else, as exemplified by her high expectations for excellence in education for the students and teachers of the state of Louisiana. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, convened at its January 2016 meeting in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, does hereby express its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Ms. Connie Bradford for her years of dedicated public service and leadership in the aforementioned areas, and be it further resolved that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education does hereby convey upon Ms. Bradford its best wishes as she continues to service and fulfillment to friends, family, and Louisiana.
Thank you so much. First of all, let me say, when I got the call to come and serve on BESE, I was surprised, but I was humbled and honored, and that is the same way I feel today. I'm very humbled and honored to have been able to serve the children of our state in this capacity. But I want to tell you, this is a great honor because of many other things as well. One, it's because of the staff who serves us so well and does so many wonderful things for us and really makes us look good. And I want to say a special thanks to Shan Davis, who has been not only an exemplary executive director, but also a good friend. The people you serve with on the board become friends. You may have contentiousness at times. You may have disagreements at times. Let me just say, you're going to have it. But the reality is that the civility and courteousness will always go further in helping this board be more successful. And so I encourage you that even though things may be chaotic on the day off, but when you go to lunch, when you go back in the back, ask about each other's children and where you're going, and especially ask about those grandchildren. I want to say to you that this experience has been so enlightening and helpful to me as an educator to hear so many different views and opinions. And so I thank all of you who've either agreed or disagreed with me during this tenure. And I thank you for showing up. Because you come, we will always have the favor of the children in our minds when we make those decisions each and every month. So I'm leaving, but I would also like to say that I thank the former Governor Bobby Jindal for giving me this opportunity, and I thank God for the ability to be here. I'd be remiss if I did not recognize a couple of special people to me in the audience, my daughter, Lindsay, and my grandchild, Avery Grace, who's willing to take off 2 hours of school to come and be here this morning. Thank you again. I'm very, very honored, and I appreciate this opportunity to have these words said to you. Thank you. We kind of look like we're dead, don't you think?
Ms. Davis?
And next is Dr. Moranti, recognized by Ms. Carol Orange Jones.
Judy, it is such an honor to have the chance to read this on behalf of the board to you. A resolution for Dr. Judith Moranti. Whereas Dr. Judith Moranti was appointed by the governor as an at-large member of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education in January 2013 and has since and at such time superbly and masterfully served as a board member without missing a beat. And whereas Dr. Moranti brings her unique perspective through experience and skills in higher education and teacher preparation and has successfully and valiantly served as a member of the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. And whereas Dr. Moranti has obtained notable personal academic accomplishments and earned her doctoral degree in counseling and personal services, counselor education from the University of Nevada, a master's degree in education from Our Lady of the Lake University, and a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Our Lady of Holy Cross College. And whereas Dr. Moranti is a steadfast beacon for education through her visionary work as the director of graduate counseling program at Xavier University and as a professor emeritus at Our Lady of Holy Cross. And whereas Dr. Moranti is committed to spirituality and family, both her own and those to whom she has devoted her life's career and mission to serve, as evidenced through being awarded the Louisiana Association for Marriage and Family Therapy's Lifetime Achievement Award. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education convened at its January 2016 meeting in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, does hereby express its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Judith Moranti for her years of dedicated public service and leadership in the aforementioned areas. And be it further resolved that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education does hereby convey upon Dr. Moranti its best wishes as she continues in service and fulfillment to friends, family, and Louisiana. Thank you.
Well, I too have a few thank yous. I definitely want to thank the confidence that the Louisiana Conference of Bishops placed in me and the superintendents of non-public schools just putting my name forward and having the governor appoint me in this position. Although it would not be a surprise for anyone to know that I was not a very good political appointee. But I am so grateful for that opportunity. There are a lot of people to thank, but the staff just made it so easy for us. And I want to thank them very particularly because when we were finished, they weren't. And they always made sure we were ready with all of our backup papers. So I'm so grateful for them. I'm also very, very grateful to have served under the leadership of our superintendent, John White. I admire and I uphold his dignity and the way that he conducted business. And John, I am so grateful to you for this opportunity. This opportunity has really brought me full circle in my career. Some of my most challenging times, and Patrick will definitely attest to this, was when we were working with our recovery school district. And I am so proud of the accomplishments that our superintendent has been able to make. This was wonderful. When I spoke to my successor, who is also a very dear person to me, I told Tommy that he will really, really enjoy the work that he's going to have to do here at the board, even though it's a lot of work. I know that. I could not have been prepared for my meetings unless I made my call to Jim. So Jim, I'm so grateful for all of our times together and to be able to just be able to hear his wisdom. Cheyenne, I'd never be able to say thank you enough. Never. I was so pleased when she became our executive director. Thank you, Will, for keeping me out of the paper as much as you did, and for calling me a wild card. I do appreciate that. I do believe that it was I loved the way they reported. I just thought they did such a superb job. There's so many other things that I want to say to those that are out in the audience that I know that are wonderful supporters. But I do want to thank those of you who come and show up and give your testimony. I don't have any words of wisdom for the newly seated board. They wouldn't be where they are if they didn't have thick skins, but I will tell you, you really make it happen. When you come, the superintendents, the people that come in, the unions, they are so dedicated to the work that they do. And I'm so grateful that they will come and talk and say what they need to say. We listened for very long hours, but we were so grateful for the input. I know many times you might have thought our minds were made up, but the one thing I learned from John when I came on the board is he promised me he would keep an open mind, and he did, and with that went my resolve to do the same. So I thank you all. I know there's some people that I didn't say thank you to, and I hope that I didn't miss anyone. But when I look out and I see Mickey and I see all the other ones that have just been so supportive, I just want to say thank you again. It's been wonderful.
And next we have Ms. Smith, recognized by Mr. Jim Garvey.
I would like to start with a comment to all of the BESE members that are leaving us today. A thank you to all of them. I was reminded just this morning how thankless of a job it is that y'all did for the last few years when someone congratulated me on coming back to the board and said condolences at the same time. It's somewhat of a thankless job, and we do appreciate all the service that y'all have put in and all the efforts. But with Ms. Smith in particular, I would like to say that whereas Ms. Jane Smith was appointed by the governor as an at-large member of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education in October of 2013, and has served with pride and integrity as a devoted board member like the true expert that she is. And whereas Ms. Smith has served dutifully with passion and professionalism as a member of the Administrative and Finance Committee and the Minimum Foundation Program Task Force, which deals with money, which is always a controversial and tough issue, exemplifying true dedication by integrating her experience gained while serving as a member of the Louisiana legislature and by maintaining fairness and integrity. And whereas Ms. Smith exhibited personal academic success through earning both a bachelor's and master's degree from Northwestern State University, and further through achieving academic success and recognition when named as by NSU as a distinguished alumnus, as well as being invited to provide the commencement address for the 2001 NSU graduates. And whereas Ms. Smith has over 30 years of education experience serving as a leader for excellence as principal and superintendent for the Bossier Parish School System, even being recognized for her contributions to education and service in 1999 as Louisiana Superintendent of the Year. Ms. Smith has honorably served as a guiding member of the House Education Committee, as well as dutifully serving as acting and Deputy Secretary for the Department of Revenue, contributing to her impressive resume, making her an invaluable resource to the board. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education convened at its January 2016 meeting in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, does hereby express its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Ms. Jane Smith for her years of dedicated public service and leadership in the aforementioned areas. And be it further resolved that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education does hereby convey upon Ms. Smith its best wishes as she continues in her service and fulfillment to her friends, family, and Louisiana. Jane, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. President and Superintendent and honorable members of the board and my friends and colleagues, it's been an honor to serve these last 2 years. And I think one of the things that I've enjoyed the most is being able to commit and enjoy meeting friends and old friends that I served with when I was in the education field and in the legislature. And even when Will had to go sit in all those education committee meetings, and then he wound up over here having to deal with me again. And one of the things that I don't know how I kept up with this, but everybody wears some kind of little badge or something. And Superintendent, the first one that I wore was from Houghton High School, and I still had it. And I have the ones from the legislature, and I have the ones from the Department of Revenue, and when I was superintendent, and the last one is BESE. And I'm still wearing the badge from the Department of Revenue because I'm doing legislative affairs, but I want to tell you how important the education field is. I was superintendent of Bossier Schools from 1995 until 2000. And since then, went on to the legislature and then here. But I was actually at a business, and I was checking out, and the lady said, "Ms. Smith, now you're still superintendent of Bossier Schools?" And I said, "No, I haven't been superintendent since 2000. But the deal is that where you affect your children and their children's lives is where they remember you." And that was so important to her because she had a connection with an educator. And I thought, there's no matter what you do in life, you're always remembered if you touch a child's life. And that meant so much to me. And so I was sort of laughing about it as I walked in. I'm going, it's been, 15 years or so since I was superintendent, but
That's what they remember you for. I want to say that it has been an honor to serve with the board that I had the honor of working with for 2 years. Everyone has been extremely kind and professional to me. The superintendent has been overly helpful on helping me coming in as a new 2-year sort of finish somebody's term out and try to help me get my feet on the ground and understand what's going on, and that meant so much to me. I think that I tried to conduct myself in a professional manner, but I want to tell you, this job is hard. Public service is hard. And so I wish all of you new members the very best of luck. God has blessed me with good health, and I pray that you are blessed with good health and strength to do this job, because I think it's so important. Thank all of you for showing up every day. It's been a great time to reacquaint with so many old friends and new friends. I'll still be doing legislative affairs for the Department of Revenue, so I hope I see you at the Capitol. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
I would like to note that Ms. Smith held up the BESE pin and said that that is the last pin that she has, but I'm guessing that that is the last pin as of today. Most likely will not be the last pin soon. Okay, Ms. Davis, we have a next item, please.
The report by the State Superintendent of Education. Need a motion to receive.
Ms. Bophy? Second, Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, as I mentioned to you in some of your briefings, a lot of what you have received over the last couple of days has been administrative issues that you are required to do just as part of the function of being the Education Board. There wasn't much on yesterday's agenda or on today's agenda that I would say is associated with the core strategic direction that the board and the department and the legislature have laid out. And so I thought I might give you a sense of what you'll hear from me in future reports, as I will try to highlight those areas in particular. I'm going to speak just briefly to 5 areas, and these will be the areas that you will hear me talk about repeatedly over time. I hope that you will find your role in either adding to these areas or changing them, adjusting them, contributing to them in whatever way. The first is unifying our system of early childhood care and education so that every eligible family in our state has a high quality child care or early childhood setting to attend. And we are in the middle of that process. It is arduous work. It's tough because you're bringing together 3 different sectors, the Head Start sector, the child care sector, and the pre-kindergarten sector. But you should know that you are the first board that has ever started in Louisiana having child care and Head Start regulation under its purview, meaning you are not just a K through 12 board, you're a birth to college board or a birth to the workforce board, and that is a fundamental change from any other board that has ever existed in our state. Second is making sure we have the highest expectations of any state in the country. That's not just about English and math standards, it's about all standards. It's about everything from kindergarten readiness all the way through the construction trades and allied health. We should aspire toward a time when every family understands how well their kids are performing, not just within our borders, but when thought of across all states in our union and across the world, so that when they inherit the globally competitive workplace, they are truly prepared for it. Third is a prepared educator. And I think probably of all topics, you're going to be talking about this one quite a lot over the next year or two. We are doing a lot of work in our state around shifting the way that we think about preparing educators to be one that is more grounded in theory and academic practice toward one that is more classroom-based and practice-based. That's a huge shift, and as anyone who has worked in a college of education can attest, it is no mean feat. But this would essentially mean that students graduating from college, and this year there will be hundreds of them, there will need to be thousands of them, but when they graduate as education majors, have experienced a full year residency as full-time apprentice educators in the classroom, so that no more will we be saying to somebody who comes into our profession, we're wondering whether or not you're effective. We should know whether or not they're effective. We've educated them for 4 years to be in our profession. And I do want to take a moment of personal privilege to call out Superintendent Voce, who has created one of the leading programs in the state to essentially train teachers in that model for St. Bernard Parish. There are others. Dr. Peugeot, who was here yesterday, oversees a similar model. Fourth is a pathway to prosperity for every young man and woman. If you're choosing TOPS and a 4-year institution, fantastic. You should graduate eligible for TOPS, funded with both federal and state aid if you're eligible for it. But if you're not, and please bear in mind that 80% of our citizens do not have a 4-year degree, we need to provide you a pathway to prosperity too. And that means revitalizing the career and technical education system. It means making sure that your workplace education or your technical college education is funded. And I want to just take a moment, in case you haven't met him, a gentleman who I've worked in a couple of other states. I was telling somebody this yesterday. I believe we have the finest community college leader in our country in Monty Sullivan. Many of you from New Orleans or the New Orleans area will know Monty from his work at Delgado. If you're from North Louisiana, you may know Monty because that's where he's from. But he's chosen after work in Virginia, which is hailed as one of the top community college systems in the country, to come back to Louisiana and to do this work here. And we're deeply blessed to have Monty be the leader of the community college system. We work hand in hand, and although we don't ever hold hands, but we do work hand in hand, and I do hope that, that he will continue his leadership in our state. Finally is the transformation of low-achieving schools, and an option for all families who are consigned to such a school. That means providing options, choice options for families that find themselves in that condition. It also means school systems doing the hard work of taking on that charge. And that is a difficult discussion. It's one that you've been having over the course of the last couple of days, but it's one that I look forward to having with you as well. Most of my updates will be in those 5 areas. And you should expect generally for my comments to be in that domain. I hope that a lot of our policy discussions will be in those realms as well, so we can really shift the dialogue toward focusing on student-centered issues, on academic-centered issues, and not so much on issues that are administrative or purely political in nature. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Your next item, 6.1. This is your board and committee reports. That's tab 6.1 in your books. Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. Dr. Bofi.
Dr. Bofi?
On behalf of the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 9, noting that motion 8 is a notice of intent.
Okay, can we get a second to that motion? Mr. Thomason? Do we have any discussion or questions from BESE members? Do we have any cards? Okay, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is tab 6.2, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Davis.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 5, number 7, 9 through 27, 29, and 30, pulling motions 6, 8, and 28.
Okay, can we get a second to that motion? Ms. Jones, thank you. We have items, start with item 6.
Mr. Garvey?
Okay.
I would
Yes, ma'am.
like to note that I'm recusing myself from items 13 and 17.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and dispose of the items that were not pulled. Do we have any objections to the motion approving those items? Hearing none, that motion carries. Noting Ms. Voce's comments, can we go to item 6? Mr. Davis, can you read that for us, please?
On 6.2, if you could read motion 6, Mr. Davis.
Motion 6 reads, on motion of Dr. Bofi, seconded by Ms. Orange Jones, the Administration and Finance Committee recommends that the board receive the report on the evaluation results for those LEAs districts failing to meet the 70% instructional requirement based on fiscal year 2013-2014 annual financial report data.
This is an MFP item, and that's what the card indicated to speak about the MFP, so that's
And
why this
can we have
item is pulled.
Ms. Debbie Moe?
Debbie Moe, representing the Louisiana Association of Educators. My comments were about the Leadership Academy.
The Leadership Academy, okay, what item?
MFP on the card.
Oh, the MFP. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to reiterate what I said yesterday, that I'm hoping that the BESE board will recommend to the legislature the recommendation that came out of the MFP commission to make sure that we are not going backwards on funding. It is really important that we continue to maintain current funding and, if at all possible, increase funding so that our children and our educators are resourced properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any comments from BESE members? Hearing none, can we get a motion to approve item 6? Ms. Holloway, can we get a second? Mr. Rock, do we have any objections to that motion? Hearing none, that motion carries. The next item is item 8. Mr. Davis, can you read that for us, please?
On motion of Ms. Holloway, seconded by Dr. Bophy, the Administration and Finance Committee recommends that the board approve the following allocation. An allocation for district leadership development for the amount of $103,750 for the funding period of January 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2016 through IET AG funds for the purpose that LEE seeks to empower local school and district leaders as they support teacher learning. The program will support districts by providing access to professional development and coaching from successful school and district leaders to enrich the current leadership pool and develop future leaders. The allocation is provided for the purpose of recruiting school and district leaders as participants for the founding cohort of the Louisiana Superintendent's Academy.
Okay, we have a speaker on this issue, Ms. Debbie Moe. And Mr. Monahan, Steve Monahan.
Good morning again. Debbie Moe, representing the Louisiana Association of Educators. Yesterday I did not come to the table and comment, but after witnessing the testimony and the vote, I felt compelled to do so today. I do think that most of us do remember that there was at one time an administrators academy. And I think at the time that Superintendent White came in, or it may have been Paul Pastrick, I'm not sure, that endeavor was basically let go, along with teacher mentorship, which was the LATAP program. I personally have 2 objections to the vote yesterday, and I don't know that I can influence anyone today, but these are my objections. Currently, there is no mentorship program for classroom teachers. We did have the LATAP program. I was a trained mentor. Superintendent White tells me that this is the role of the teacher leaders in the schools. However, I don't think that they see their role as being mentors in the traditional sense of mentor for our new young teachers. They will bring down information from the state about the guidebooks, about curriculum, strategies, etc., which is helpful. However, there are many more needs that our teachers need. I recently talked with a first-year teacher who said that at the beginning of the year, the teachers in her school gave her excellent support, were there for her, worried about her. But as September rolled through and they got into October, everybody was so engrossed in what they were doing for their own students and in their own classrooms that she basically said each time that she asked for help, that was not given to her. They were just too overwhelmed with what they needed to do themselves. When I was a mentor, I also was in the classroom, but I took on the role of mentor, and I was both assessor trained and mentor trained. It was something that I committed to. I don't think that our teacher leaders are committing to that kind of intense mentorship with our brand new teachers. I really am upset that we are leaving classroom teachers out of the circle of mentorship and just relying on the districts to provide that. And some can and do, but not everyone has the funding to do that. I believe that also my second objection to the vote is the justifications that you heard yesterday for going ahead and taking the $103,000 and putting it into the program. The justification by Superintendent White was that it was just basically pennies. Well, $103,000 is not pennies, although in a multi-million-dollar budget, it may seem that way. However, the HE funds are really meant for the classroom and not necessarily for administration. I do not have any problems with a program that helps to mentor superintendents, principals, etc. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is the funding. And I do have a problem with the continued use of the phrase, it's just a little bit here, it's just a little bit there. We need to make sure that we are placing as much money into our classrooms and into our classroom teachers as possible. Another thing that really upset me a great deal was after the vote, I walked into the hallway and heard the comment, well, that was easy. Should have asked for $1 million. I don't like that sentiment because I think that it will go counter to what Ms. Edmondson asked, which it was for the principals, the superintendents, and the School Boards Association, who have a similar program, to work with, I think it's Dr. Mesa's program, and come up with one program. I think that they are looking at the HE funds as possibly a permanent source of funding, which I don't believe that it should be. And I do want these two groups to work together to make sure that we have a program for our superintendents, and hopefully for our principals as well, that is worth the investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moe. Mr. Monahan.
Thank you, Chairman Doherty, and members of the BESE board. I too, as Ms. Moe did, listened carefully to the conversation yesterday, and tried to weigh very, very carefully so I can communicate to my own leadership and the board that I answer to. And what I will say first is, didn't testify because I don't want to get myself in a mess of dispute between superintendents. We have enough of our own problems, except we are affected by these kind of disputes. And that's what I was reminded of by the board members. I don't want to repeat anything Ms. Moe said. I just simply say it this way. I think when we start talking about partnerships and public-private partnerships, particularly in the history of where we've been, it opens up questions about how will transparency and how will accountability occur within this particular matrix. And that's troubling given some of the past history, particularly when the superintendent leadership were very clear that their interest was to do the very same thing and not tap the HE funds. And I do appreciate the superintendent's comments in regard to, with respect to the totality of funds we're talking about, these millions of dollars, $103,000 is relative change. However, it's the nickels and pennies that they're talking about coming over there in the legislature right now. And the finance report I heard yesterday, I'm sure you all did, was very, very sobering. The legislators heard. So $103,000 is $103,000. So with that, without belaboring the point, the way they vote is almost as if we did a poll yesterday. We do have very concerns about this, and we wish the superintendents could work together, and they could come up with a training plan without waiting for funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Okay, can we get a motion to approve item 8? Ms. Bophy, second by Ms.
Second.
Holloway. Do we have any discussion from BESE members?
Mr. Garber,
Hearing
I have a couple of questions.
Ms. Edmiston.
Okay. In listening to both Mr. Monahan and Ms. Moe, we talked briefly yesterday, if this is approved, the $103,750 is a one-time thing. Did we ever decide on that? Or was it left kind of up in the air as to whether or not it would be a recurring funding source?
We've made no commitments on funding for next year in any way, in large part because we don't know what funds the state will have next year.
Okay. And I know that we did discuss the possibility of the superintendent's group, for lack of a better name, and Dr. Mesa getting together. If we vote on this, I mean, I'm just wondering, does that mean that won't happen?
Well, I think you could do one of two things. As I commented in response to your comments yesterday, I think you could either stipulate it, or you could stipulate that I report back to you and try to facilitate it. In other words, I could go to Scott and Hollis and Patrice and could say, hey, look, are you guys sitting down, update me on your progress? I wanted to bring a report back to the board at the March meeting that indicate there's been progress on a unification. I can tell you right now, if that's what you want me to do, I will do it. Or you could also require it in a motion.
Well, that's definitely what I think is in the best interest, is for them to work together. So if I need to make it in a motion, I will.
I'm happy to put on the record, Ms. Edmonston, that I will do it, and I will report back to you with progress at the next meeting.
Okay, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jones.
If memory serves me correctly, Dr. Mesa did indicate yesterday that there was a possibility that they might be coming back asking for more and would look at that in the future. My understanding was that they were seeking funds from private and so forth to go along with what they've got. I would like to offer a substitute motion that we approve it with the understanding that it is just a one-year initial grant, and that any future would have to be reevaluated and in other words, I don't like the idea that we're possibly opening up a permanent funding source here, and I think that's probably the same objection that you have to it. Is that accurate? Okay. So I'd like to offer a substitute motion that says that it's a one-year commitment.
Okay, Ms. Bophy, do you have a point of order, or
I just would.
should we get a second on the motion first?
You should get a second.
Okay, would you like to second it, or? Mr. Thomason, seconds?
Are we talking about Mr. Gary's motion?
No, your motion. I wanted to second.
Okay, you want to second my motion. I don't know whose motion is on the floor.
Dr. Jones's motion is up for being seconded. Mr. Thomason, is that what you're offering a second for? No? Okay. Does anybody else want a second?
No, I think we need to be clear what motion we're talking about.
Your motion.
Gary, I think you can wrap up what I said in your motion.
Okay, that's what I was trying to do.
Okay.
Where's our staff people here? How do we say what we just want? Basically, my motion is that we approve this as a one-time item with no future commitment.
Okay.
And also, could we make in the same motion that Superintendent White will commit to getting the parties together to work together?
Yes, okay.
And come back with a report?
Yeah, can we do that together, or do we?
Right, yeah, we can do that in one motion.
Okay. Staff, have you captured that motion?
Well, congratulations.
Okay. Let me try.
This is an allocation.
The motion is to approve this allocation with the note that there's no commitment to approving additional money next year, and directing the superintendent to come back in March with a report on the cooperation or lack thereof between the two groups that are interested in this issue. Seconded by Ms. Edmonston. Is that okay? Okay. Got it.
I had a comment.
Ms. Bowman.
So I just want to clarify so that people understand that we consider these allocations on a year-to-year basis. And so allocations in one year do not impact allocations for years to come. That will have to be considered by us through the process that we talked about, where we identify the priorities. We also figure out how much money we have to spend and what boxes that money will go in. So anytime we make an AG allocation, it's a one-time allocation. It's not a multi-year allocation. So I'm not comfortable putting restrictions, for us to put restrictions on ourselves relative to what we may or may not do in the future. This is, as you pointed out, this is a startup program, and so it might turn out to be an amazing program that we should consider. So I'm not comfortable, making limitations that we don't have to set on ourselves.
Does this actually do that?
Ms. Buffy, I'd point out that this does not do that, as I understand it. It just notes that this is not committing us in the future. It's not committing us to not do it in the future, but it's not committing us to do it in the future.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Ms. Jones?
I have no problem with that.
I understand the intent. What I'm trying to gain clarity on isn't the assumption that it's going to be a one-year grant anyway, meaning even with no language, I understand the spirit of the board, and I felt like we made our intentions clear to the recipient yesterday. But if we just kept it as it is, would that also just imply on its face that it is not a recurring grant, or is?
I would say that on its face, it implies that there's no commitment for it to be a recurring item.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Milton?
For discussion?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make a comment. Okay.
Good morning again. I greatly appreciate you just giving me an opportunity. Obviously, I got wrapped up into this conversation, so I wanted to feel like I felt like at this point I needed to just say a few things, maybe to give you a little bit more background. There is some work that we're currently doing, okay, and you heard that yesterday. So granted, there's some great merits by what they're coming up with, Dr. Meza. We're not arguing that. We really don't know enough about what they have created yet. They probably, obviously, and I think you even said Superintendent White, communication, they may not know every little piece and puzzle that we're doing, and that's because we all have other jobs to do, and we're always so busy. The issue is, though, and I spoke to Superintendent Pucho yesterday morning about this issue, and I said, she called me about it, and I said, well, the concern is that because this kind of came about late, we didn't know that $8G would be included in this. We had no idea of that. And that concerned us some, especially as two groups are working through this. Obviously, redundancy probably doesn't do us a great deal of justice. We'd rather have one program. The issue is, though, all of the superintendents that were working on this program were at a last association meeting where we voted and approved to create our own. And at that point, we even put someone on their committee to be a part of this committee to create this. There was an agenda. There were lots of folks there, majority of the superintendents of the state. The challenge for me right now on any kind of commitment to work forward is that my group very much may say, as a group, and you've been president, you know how that works, may say, we don't want to do this. We want to keep on doing our own because, quite frankly, we have built up a lot of excitement just working through it. And I think some of those conversations, obviously, were inspired by what this group is doing. We're not opposed to this. It's just two groups trying to work through this. We do feel like we have the capacity to do this, and we've already spoke to some private funders that would help support this. I didn't actually plan on speaking to you today about any of this, but if you're confined to say, well, this is all contingent, that's the whole reason yesterday I said defer this. That's the only reason. If we defer this, and I understand the challenges there, I get it. But at the same time, if you didn't defer this, it didn't give me time to go back to my group and say, hey, look, these people turned down, this group of superintendents, this group turned down $100,000, $103,000. They want one last chance to talk to us to do this collaboratively, okay? And so that's what I need, because I can't tell you what my group is going to say right now. And I know that I'm going to have some who are going to want to continue to do our own, but I may be able to massage this if I had time. That's up to you. You obviously voted for it, approved it, and I'm fine with that. I'm going to respect that opinion. I will work with my association, but I cannot promise you that we're going to build this collaboration, because a lot of my folks are already very excited as part of the committee to do this work themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to reiterate the comments of Superintendent Milton, the primary opposition or the primary concern amongst stakeholders is the use of 8G funds, which only came to light in recent days. And I truly believe that will be the continued roadblock that we all face. We respect what you're discussing this morning, and thank you for even having the discussion. It's a pretty hot issue. There should be unity. There should be cooperation. We've been hearing those words around Baton Rouge and around the state for the last several weeks, and we would hope we could start the new year off on the right foot. And Hollis hit the nail on the head. Deferral would be more welcomed for us to have some time to work the kinks out rather than approval, and for all the reasons he stated earlier. Thank you again, seriously, thank you for having this discussion this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Bophy, did you have a comment? Okay, Ms. Holloway?
Yes, I do. I want to commend the superintendents that had the foresight to look into this development and commend them tremendously in regards to this and developing the program, and we did get the program information in hand. But I just need some clarification. From what I understand, that when the group came forward to develop this, there was a meeting of different groups or individuals, as you were invited. Is that correct? So you could hear what their conversations were, what they wanted to develop, how they wanted to move forward to target aspiring leaders to become superintendents because of the shortage and the foresight of what we're heading for in the future. I just need some understanding of why wasn't the group continuously working together?
Sure. As a matter of fact, Dr. Kay Brumley, who's a major part of this, who actually sits on the board that created this entity, is actually one of the key people that I put on our committee. It's led by Superintendent Brian Lejeune, who spoke to you yesterday from Jeff Davis Parish. The whole reason we included that person is because as we had some conversation with some superintendents, some felt comfortable with the way this was going, some didn't. And so what I said is, in a collaborative piece, that's what we are as an association, I put him on the committee so that he could share what they had done and where they are. But let me be very clear, for LASS, we think that there was a lot of forethought. I agree with you, superintendents, and it's not a new idea. LASS has been pushing this idea for the last couple of years, and there's actually been some work under the past president, Doris Vaucher, who worked very hard on, but we were working on a lot of initiatives. And we have to, just like you do, we have to create priorities. What are we going to do first, second, and third? And as you know, with a lot of change in education, there's only so much LASS can do. Okay, so what we did is I brought this as a committee and said, with a timeline, that we would launch something by next fall. Bottom line, that's all I wanted, whether it came through this program or whether it was a more conducive program. I have told the group, I think the biggest concern, and I'll say it to you, it's really more of an internal conversation, but it includes you now. The biggest concern that I have, and I said, look, if you can put the check in the check box, I think I can steer my group. Who at the end of the day is going to have ownership of this program? Because as superintendents, we have to feel comfortable that we are going to have a strong voice in this program, a lot of ownership, because it is the next leaders that we are grooming. And many times those are going to be the recommendations that we're going to make. We see an aspiring leader and we say, hey, this is the person. Lots of those details, even from that group, from my understanding, there has not been a lot of details. I think there's a lot of concept, which is great, but we haven't gotten into those places yet. And I think you've got to have that organizational structure to know who at the end of the day are we going to hold accountable to make the final decision. And I think that's the simple part. It's not a complicated piece here. What it does require is some time. We want to get it right, and we want to get it right the first time. So I want to make sure as president, that's an ultimate responsibility for me when I finish my term, that I can say, hey, if this was created while I was as president, it was done in a way that superintendents 3 and 5 years from now can feel good about the program. And it's not a separate, completely separate entity where we don't have some voice, some control in.
Hollis, just a quick
Superintendent.
quick question. I agree with everything you said about working together. Why would the board approving the allocation now prevent Superintendents Peugeot and Matthews and George from working with the association?
Well, I think at the end of the day, first of all, part of the problem here is as this group has worked, a lot of folks didn't have the knowledge. There's a lot of superintendents, and we need to communicate. The problem is that I think there's been so much movement made forward, and there's already been a lot of decisions made. We don't even know what those are.
Yeah, I understand, but why would it making the allocation
because it was
prevent them
it
from
was a
sharing it
simple
with you?
request for me to say defer this for us and let us have a meeting. And I'm not saying that it won't work. I do think it is an impediment. And I do think some superintendents
Why?
are going to say, hey, well, we can get private funding. We're not going to take any state dollars for it.
But why
That
is
would
it,
be
why
one
is it,
issue.
an- why is it an impediment to them collaborating with you just for the board to approve the other?
Well,
like, they work with both of us all the time.
Well,
What's gonna stop them?
I agree with you there,
Yeah.
but the problem is, all I ask for is a simple defer. A defer is not a big issue for this board to make. I'm not sure why we're rushing off into something when all I ask for is a simple deferral. Let the group come back, because we wanted to make sure. We had already put on our agenda. We've been very open and transparent about what we've done with all superintendents. It was on an agenda. They all came. We have to have in our own group a cohesive piece. That's not easy to do, and I know you understand that. My thing is this: it was a simple deferral, but do what you want to do. This is. I mean, look, LAS is going to go back, and we're going to have to make a decision on what we have to do at this point. I will let the superintendents guide me. If they choose to do this, that's great. The only reason I'm speaking today is because you've included me in this. So I've got to speak up for the superintendents. I mean, I have no choice but to say, I got to herd a group of independent superintendents, a good group.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Milton. Mr. Davis. Ms. Bochet.
This is a very sensitive and difficult situation. And I've been skirting the issue. I was the president of the Superintendents Association last year. Mike Falk before me. And in that time, we had major discussions with LACE, the Louisiana Association of School Executives, whose executive director is J. Rogers Pope, and the Principals Association about doing a program for aspiring superintendents. We had gone so far over that 2-year period of having sessions at the different conferences, and we were trying to develop it. We had talked with some private funders about coming forth and helping us fund those endeavors. It did not come to our association's attention until this past summer that the Superintendent's Academy had been under development, the one that you're talking about funding, had been under development for the prior 12 to 18 months with a group of superintendents meeting. So the last leadership and most of the superintendents in the Superintendents Association were not aware that that was going on or that planning was going on simultaneously. It's my understanding, now Hollis became the president in July. It was my understanding that this group met with him at that time and told him about the endeavor. So the next time the superintendents as a group met was at our November conference, at which time Superintendent Milton put a committee together of superintendents, including some in the Superintendent's Academy group, to talk about this and to try to develop possibly a program together or see how it was going to work out. Well, that committee has not come to a conclusion yet. And I don't think the Superintendents Association was going to come to this body to ask for funding for planning and development. We were going to the private funders. So it was somewhat of a surprise to Superintendent Milton and last leadership that this was on the agenda. And that's why all this is sort of coming to a head right now. So it's very difficult for us to reconcile that because every person, every superintendent that's Superintendent's Academy as well, I have a great deal of respect for and have worked tremendously well and closely with them. It would be my hope that these efforts could be joined together. I'm not sure how that's going to be accomplished unless we have time as a group of superintendents to sit down and do that. Now, as Superintendent Milton said, if it's the will of the group to award the planning grant for 6 months, I'm not going to object to that. I just wish we did have some more time to collaborate because it should be a united effort.
Yes, it should.
And it should be a united effort. And I personally would not have asked for this type of funding through the AG program, realizing I know it's for innovation, I know it's statewide. You know, I've been dealing with AG for 40 years from the other side. But I guess at this point we are where we are. I won't object to it, but I wish we had more time. If the group wished to defer, I'd be in favor of that, but I would not push for it.
My only concern, just so you have a sense of my concern, members, I agree with what Ms. Vaucher says. I think it's clear from the testimony we've received that the communication, probably on all sides, has not been what it needed to be. Fine, that is what it is. My only concern is about the timing of the monies. If you wait until March to allocate the monies, then nobody gets them until April. That leaves you 3 months left in the school year, much of which is distracted with end of school year stuff and with legislative stuff before you can get the monies out. I really would prefer to get the monies into someone's hands so they can use them. We only have 6 months left in this fiscal year anyways. If we don't spend it, there's no guarantee that the state education system gets those monies back. So my sense is that if they really can collaborate, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I know the folks involved, Dr. Peugeot, Dr. Matthews, Mr. George, I know we all know them well. I know they will be responsible stewards and meet with Mr. Richard and meet with Mr. Milton, Dr. Milton, and others. And I think, Ms. Vaucher, I think you're right in the problem here. I just think that the problem that's created by not getting the money out the door creates a bigger problem, which is that we probably end up wasting a bunch of money that's actually for the purpose of developing educators.
Mr. Davis?
Superintendent or Mr. Garvey, I'm sorry.
Mr. Davis next.
I just have a question.
I just wanted to say that as I listen to this, it's certainly, and kind of to Superintendent White's point there, obviously the communication has not occurred the way that perhaps should have. It's certainly not optimal in this Ms. Vaucher's comments, but frankly, I think it's in your best interest, as the comments from the floor and from all the acronym groups involved, to work together. I mean, time being what it is, but it does not stop for any of us in this regard, and it's important that you make it urgent. If it is urgent, make it urgent. Prioritize. And I'll say one final thing to this point is something I heard earlier made me think of a quote, and the internet, you can't trust everything you read there, so it's attributed to Harry Truman here, but it says, "It is amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit." And I think that's very important in this conversation, and everyone should be aware of that. And I'll finish with that.
Okay, Mr. Jones.
I too am a former president of that association, and what's ironic about this situation is that all the people in this second one are members of the first one.
That's right.
And so, after hearing this and revisiting some of my memories, I'd like to withdraw my motion. I think it's time for us to just go ahead and give it. And in all honesty, if we give them the money, that'll give you the reason for y'all to get together and set this thing down and get it going. Because in all honesty, we can talk about this forever and ever and a day. We had the motion yesterday. It was approved. I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Ms. Edmonston?
I have a question. In your plans for your group, were you or are you, or what is the plan of coming to this board and asking for money for your endeavors?
We have no plans at this time to come to money, nor did we have any. What we had started working on is getting some private funders, and I do have some verbal commitments there, but these folks do feel very strongly about supporting us, and it's collaborative. It's with Scott Richard, because the board members have to be involved in this. They need to be aware of this, and obviously boards are boards are, board training, good board training to keep a good alignment of vision. I saw that was in their same plan as well. We've done some work. What I will tell you is, I think what you're telling me, though, is quite frankly the opposite, and that's just my opinion. I think this is going to push my group further away. That's why I'm asking to defer. I can only say that intuitively, but I'm going to do whatever my group tells me to do. And so, I say that with respect, because you have to understand that with our group, it's a large group, very independent. And I think most of them had bought in. From the last time they heard from me on this issue is they had saw the agenda, they went to the meeting, they voted, they approved of a process going forward, and all I need to do is follow up. And I've already, Superintendent Lejeune is already working with this other group, so that creates some issues for me. This money I'm getting, $100,000, does not do anything for me. It actually probably, that's why I asked for a deferral. It wasn't to say no, it was to say, whoa, just give us a little time. And I understand the sense of urgency. I have a sense of urgency about a lot of things, but I also have a due diligence not to do any harm. And I'm trying to keep my group cohesive, and really in something that's very exciting. Just like they're very excited, my group was very excited too. And so, but look, I'm good with whatever you do. I will say this to you just out of respect. Just because you provide these dollars does not mean in any way that that's going to push my group toward doing this. We may just say, hey, we're going to go do our own, and we'll be competitive. We all believe in competition, and so we may create our own, and we can do, we're excited about doing that. That's not what I want to do. And if 2 months makes the real difference between us putting together a group, one of the issues are, though, Dr. Bofi, one of the issues is who has control, and that is a right of last, and superintendents are very adamant about who is going to drive a lot of the direction in this. So I would just tell you, just out of respect, just keep that in mind. Whatever you do, though, look, I was done with this issue yesterday. The only reason I came back up here was because you included my name, which was fine, and I felt like you needed to have a little bit more information. So,
Ms. Edmiston, if I may, Mr. President, to respond to your inquiry. There is no intent of the two school boards association and LAS to come to BESE to seek funds. That was never the intent. The other issue is the missing component is our intent was to work with universities. This program that Dr. Mays' group has brought to you is not a novel idea. There are school leadership trainings that several exist in New Orleans already. There are several in our state, not to mention the number of educational leadership programs that exist at just about every university in our state. And rather than recreating the wheel and coming to this board, asking this board to divert funds that should go to educational programming, we felt it was in the best interest of our membership, the school boards and the superintendents, to work to piggyback off of what was already in place and improve upon what the universities are doing, and really collaborate with the universities in their educational leadership programs to expose future school district leaders to things such as this: BESE, the legislature, working with the High School Athletic Association, working with a number of things that you don't normally understand when you're moving from an assistant superintendent or a principal's position to a school superintendent's position. All the various things that come into the development of policy and legislation that affects every student in the state. That is the intent of the School Boards Association. To reiterate Mr. Milton's comments, ownership is a big issue. School boards employ the 69 superintendents. Charter school boards employ their executive directors and their leaders. It's important that the boards have some ownership in this too. And to date, to answer Ms. Holloway's question, in fall 2015, we had one initial discussion with this group. November 2015, the last association met, and this discussion was furthered there. And in between there's a nonprofit company formed by the 5 superintendents that's on file with the Secretary of State's office, the Louisiana Superintendent's Academy. That wasn't disclosed to the group. And then in December 21st of 2015, there's a grant application to the department for 8G funds. And here we are today, January 13th, 2016, if I'm not mistaken, and we're still bouncing around these issues. So transparency, disclosure, ownership, all the various components that go into making something positive and productive still need to be worked out. That's why we're sitting at the table today. Again, thank you for having the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Okay, Mr. Jones, you had a concern about your substitute motion. Let me ask the superintendent. You don't have a problem with bringing to us in March a report concerning the cooperation or lack thereof from these groups?
I'm happy to.
Okay, great. With that, you would like to continue with your motion, if I understand it?
Yes. Let me just say, at the end of the day, whether we get one quality program out of this or whether we get two quality programs, we win either way.
Great.
So in all honesty, I hope they can collaborate. But if they can't collaborate and it results in two different quality leadership programs, how do we lose? So I will go back to my motion.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item. Oh, item 28, we go back to Mr. Davis. Can you read number 28?
Item 28 reads, on motion of Dr. Jones and seconded by Ms. Edmonston, the Administration and Finance Committee recommends that the Board approve reports in response to House Resolution 69, House Resolution 209, House Concurrent Resolution 126, House Concurrent Resolution 136, House Concurrent Resolution 174, House Concurrent Resolution 182, House Concurrent Resolution 204, and Senate Resolution 130 of the 2015 regular legislative session, and direct the LDE to submit said reports to the appropriate legislative committees.
Okay, we have a speaker that would like to comment on this item, Mr. Sean Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President and member. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, but the closer you can get, the better.
Is this better?
That is good.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board again. Good morning. Ms. Edmonston had replied to my email I'd sent to y'all and requested that I just bring this issue back up to, I guess, further explain or educate y'all on why. She asked me during the email, is this germane to the issue? And y'all looking at a report on positive behavioral interventions and supports. And in that report, it explains how in 1993, when the PBIS came to Louisiana, and actually when it was originated in the 80s, it was designed for kids who presented severe challenging behaviors. Behaviors that would often result in them being restrained or secluded. You will also note that when it explains PBIS, it explains it's a tiered system, and it explains the first two tiers, the universal and the secondary, but not the student level. And the student level is from where it originated. The reason there in 08 and 09, there were 2/3 of the schools in the state. Over 900 schools were engaged and had been trained in the universal implementation of PBIS and have had positive outcomes with behavior, positive outcomes with academics. The reason we went down that road was because when we were training schools to deal with kids with the severe challenging behaviors, our culture in Louisiana, to put it bluntly, is one to restrain and seclude. We have the highest incarceration rate in the world. It's built into our culture. Okay. The reason we went to universal was to establish cultures in school that would be more amenable to accept positive, proactive educational approaches to deal with students who had the really severe challenging behaviors. About 20 years ago, I was in a school, and I was working with one kid, or a team were working with one kid, and another kid was wheeled past me with his class. The kid had his arms in Pringle cans that were taped down with duct tape. His wrists were tied with a band that went beneath his his legs, and he was confined to a wheelchair, which he had 5-point restraints on his legs and his chest. And I realized then I was working with the wrong kid, but I said, surely, this is illegal. And I researched the law, and to my dismay, I realized it was not illegal. And so in my capacity of supporting that school, I could not tell them to discontinue a practice that I felt was grossly inhumane, because it was beyond my capacity to tell them because they were not violating the law. In 2011, the legislature passed what became Act 328, regulating the use of restraints and seclusion. They heard from many parents. We had parents from across the state educate legislators. The first time the bill was presented in 2010, it died because people perceived it as not being tough on discipline or behavior. But then they realized that it was actually, and I will ask for just a little more time, but I will wrap it up, Mr. President.
Please, we had 5 minutes, I think we said.
Yeah, we did. How much time am I on?
20 seconds. 5.
I'm not going to make that. But it passed because it was clear that the issues parents brought forward needed guidance, guidelines, and parameters on the use of restraint and seclusion. But as it relates to the report y'all are reading, it's one indicator of whether a school system and a teacher needs supports, needs the training, needs their capacity built. And yet it's absent. Not only is it absent in that report, I've had difficulty getting it when I requested. And that was the string of emails I sent y'all. Well, first I questioned the data because this is a sensitive topic. I can understand school systems may be reluctant to self-report. I know they have reasons not to. But if it's within a culture of support, and the Department of Education is also supporting their training and their capacity building when they see the need, which is how it should be. And if you read through that PBIS report, PBIS is data driven, and I guess it just saddens me to the core that the kids that PBIS were designed for, the data for those kids, the strongest indicator that we need more interventions and more support and more capacity building is not available. It's not readily available, and with data or available or questionable at best. And I'll open up to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Do we have any, Mr. Superintendent?
I have no questions, nor do I wish to engage in a dialogue and prolong our meeting, but I will say I did some looking into this since Mr. Fleming's comments yesterday. First, there is no legal requirement to gather the data. Perhaps Mr. Fleming would work with us on legislation to do that. Perhaps he would work with us on legislation to address the issue substantively. However, we do collect the data. We have made improvements and have a flag in SIR now that with the special education data system that allows that. I believe we've communicated those improvements to you. And our intent to release a report in 2016 that more accurately reflects the data. I would suggest that this probably is it's not a wrong venue. I don't think it's the best venue for a substantive discussion of the issue. I think that's the Special Education Advisory Panel. And so, Mr. Fleming, if you're interested, we'll certainly make that topic on that agenda. I'm not asking for a response. I'm simply suggesting that may be something that you speak with my staff about.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any other BESE members?
Excuse me.
Ms. Edmonston.
For a response, but could we allow him to respond?
That's certainly your prerogative, Ms.
Okay.
Edmonston.
Yes, I'd like to hear the response.
Mr. Fleming?
Yeah. I think there are a lot bigger issues that this represents. And there used to be an entire advisory committee and a group that looked at positive behavior interventions and supports. not only at the universal level and the secondary, but the tertiary levels. And the fact that that committee and many other committees do not meet, the fact that it's restricted to a single committee on special education advisory panel, which is not collaborative with the larger initiative of the universal and secondary interventions. And the fact that these data were not presented or made available or brought forth even to SEEP, much less to another committee, is actually a bigger issue. Because SEEP is not within its scope likely going to make a suggestion that the department address PBIS. Because PBIS goes all the way to the school level. It's training school leaders and principals, assistant principals, and teachers who are not special education, which highlights another issue that, behavior, when I really applaud like superintendent's, 5 main areas. Well, if students are going to be prosperous and exit school ready for the world, behavior is the one thing that gets kids jobs or gets kids kicked out of jobs or gets kids connected to communities or gets kids segregated from communities. And so when I look at the standards and all the other things we're looking at, when I send my kids, I drop my kids off every day at school along with a neighborhood kid. I expect them to do their academics. I also expect them to behave appropriately and to treat everybody with respect and kindly, etc. And those things I know will take them further than their academics, or prevent them, maybe I should say. And so the discussion needs a place, and it needs a bigger place than SEEP, with all due respect. And I think if I look at all the different task force and work groups related to kids with disabilities and how many no longer exist and the limited dialogue and conversation that occurs, I think is part of the problem. It's part of the reason why this issue is not even on the agenda. Why y'all asking, Kathy had to ask me, had to ask me, is this germane? I'm like, it's germane to everything y'all talked about. It's germane to alternative schools y'all looked at and programs and where we're sending the kids. It's germane to everything y'all talked about. I chose this because it was evidently omitted and it's glaringly omitted, and it needs a bigger place at the table. And I'll be more than happy to have extended dialogue, but it's data that the law does require the department to maintain a database of incidents on restraint and seclusion. How they choose to do that is up to them, but y'all can, I think, direct them to do that. My question is, I just asked them how were they doing it, and I never got a response.
Ms. Edmondson, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yesterday I thought we addressed that, and I thought Superintendent White was in agreement that the data that he's requesting will get for you, correct?
Yes. I also, and Sean, I've not been close to the dialogue. I don't agree with the characterization that we haven't been responsive. I think we have acknowledged that in the past it wasn't collected as well as it needed to be. It's important to collect, and we're going to do a strong job. And I think Sean's right that it's hard to collect because sometimes the kind of thing people don't want to exactly be forthcoming about. So we're going to work on it.
Yeah.
And Sean, any suggestion that you've got about a bigger platform, we should have. And I know that in New Orleans, for example, we're having a discussion about services to help schools and kids in this respect. If we want to make that statewide, let's do that.
Okay,
I appreciate that, Superintendent White. That's
comments,
really
Ms.
all
Edmiston?
I want is a dialogue, and if it takes me and you and Sean getting together, I'm certainly willing to do that.
Well, let's do it.
I was in on the PBIS from the beginning and the inception, and as some of you may or may not know, I work with a lot of kids that have behavioral issues that impedes their success in school. That's the minor. When they get out, what happens to them is more major. So I appreciate you being willing to do that, Sean. We will get together and we'll work this out.
Thank you, Ms. Edmiston. Any other BESE members? No comments? Okay, can we get a motion to approve item 28, please?
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, Ms. Bophy, second. Thank you. Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item, tab 6.3, minimum foundation program public hearing. Mr. Davis.
I move to receive the minimum foundation program public hearing minutes.
Can we get a second to that, please? Ms. Holloway? Do we have any questions from BESE members? Do we have any cards? Okay, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Tab 6.4, Educator Effectiveness Committee. Ms. Orange Jones.
On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I move to approve motions 1 to 5.
Can we get a second to that, please? Second. Ms. Bophy?
Mr. Garvey, I'd
Yes,
like
Ms.
to
Bocek.
recuse on number 4.
Please note that in our minutes. Thank you. Any other questions from BESE members? Hearing none, are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item, 6.5, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Dr. Jones.
On behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 4 and 6 through 24 and pull motion 5. Please let the record reflect that I am recusing myself from motion 3.
Okay, please reflect that in the minutes. Can we get a second to approve the items as listed? Second, Ms. Bophy. Any objection to approving those items? Hearing none, motion carries. Let's move to number 5. Mr. Jones, Dr. Jones, can you read that for us, please?
On motion of Dr. Bophy, seconded by Mr. Garvey, the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee recommends that the board approve the LDE recommendation to grant a 1-year extension to Southwest Louisiana Charter Academy, a Type 2 charter school operated by Southwest Louisiana Charter Academy Foundations, Incorporated.
Okay, we have 2 speakers that would like to address this item, Ms. Debbie Moe and Mr. Scott Richard.
Debbie Moe, representing the Louisiana Association of Educators. My comments are generally about charter schools. I guess it's no mystery or secret that my association does not approve wholeheartedly of charter schools. We believe that it has its place. But as we watch what is happening on the scene in Louisiana, we see more and more charter proliferation. I do see that you are taking careful stock of many of the schools that are being presented to you for charter authorization. However, I do also see that the funding of charter schools is draining desperately needed resources out of the traditional system. I can't say that there is no circumstance under which a charter should be granted. However, I would hope that the BESE board, all of you, would think very, very carefully before allowing charter schools to proliferate. I am afraid that we are going to charterize Louisiana and through charters commit to a boutique type of educational system that is neither connected nor able to be funded by this state. The funding of charter schools, as I said yesterday, is putting great strain on the traditional system. Sometimes I wonder if our traditional system can survive. It is the only constitutionally mandated system through which we are to educate every single child. I know that everyone says that charters are public schools. I don't necessarily believe that. In a lot of cases, I think that charter schools tend to be public-private schools. I really do believe that the previous item that I spoke on, the Leadership Academy, is being set up for charter schools and charter school CEOs. The traditional public system doesn't have or doesn't necessarily extend to charter schools. I understand that We need to help our charter school CEOs, but I do believe that we need to make sure that we are not putting undue strain on a system that has served the state of Louisiana and served it well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Chairman Garvey, members. More of an observation on this item. Yesterday, and I'm not speaking just to the Southwest Louisiana Charter Academy. The issue or the concern is, or the observation is that out of the two type 2s and 5s recommended for extensions, 5 out of 6 of those are either C's or D's based on the letter grade labeling system. The type 2 charter renewals, 3 out of the 5 are C's and D's. All of the type 5 charter renewals, 6 out of the 6 are C's. I bring that point to your attention to focus on the fact that if letter grades are truly the measure of student success or lack thereof in Louisiana, please look carefully as elected and appointed BESE board members. Look carefully at the benchmarks that we judge success at by in this state. Take a look at the validity of the letter grades. Please take a look at the student population that's being served by the folks that are receiving these renewals and extensions, and put some teeth into that lawful requirement that there are certain student populations that are being underserved in many of these schools. Focus on the lawful requirements that Ms. Edmonston so eloquently read into the record yesterday as the purpose of charter schools, to focus on serving at-risk students. Take a look at the 70% instructional requirement that you have on your BESE agenda. That means something. That is very important when schools can't utilize 70% of their funding towards instruction. Many of the traditional school districts on that list can't do it because funds are being diverted from their districts to fund charter schools. And finally, the chart that I distributed to you yesterday that highlighted the over $242 million in local funds that are being redirected to many type 2 charter schools, which put the traditional districts in a position of financial jeopardy across our state. Take a look at those things. Take what you do seriously when it comes to judging the effectiveness or lack thereof of those schools as the board that decides on the extensions, renewals, etc. Thank you for allowing me to provide testimony to you this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Okay. That's the speakers that we have. Can we get a motion to approve item 5, please? Ms. Holloway, Ms. Bophy, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from BESE members? Hearing none, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is on page 1, behind tab 7.1. Consideration of nominees to be submitted and recommended to the governor for appointment to the Board of Supervisors of the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, LCTCS. Motion to approve.
Can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Bophy, second by Mr. Davis. You think have had a chance, or we have was emailed to you what is in the backup here, the resume of 4 people that have been nominated: Mr. Robert Brown, Miss Helen Bridges Carter, Miss Erica McConduit Diggs, and Mr. Stephen Smith. Do we have any questions from BESE members about the information or about these candidates? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
That concludes your agenda.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to, in closing, say I'm really looking forward to this next year. We have 8 brand new BESE members. I have asked them all if our staff has been working well to bring them up to speed. They have told me that our staff is doing a great job. It appears that way to me, too. I think we're going to have some exciting times. Thank you very much. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Ms. Davis and her staff, and you, Mr. Garvey, and you, Ms. Bophy, for the great orientation you gave us and the things that you provided. It made it a whole lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you.